everyone, I'm Logan Clements, freelance event producer, and today I'm bringing you another installment of my favorite tips and tricks when it comes to event planning and running your own business. This week we're going to continue with the theme of virtual event planning, and today we're actually going to talk very specifically about live content versus pre-recorded content. One of the beauties with the virtual sphere is you can present recorded content like it's live or live content kind of like it's recorded. So I'm going to kind of break down how I make that decision with clients about what content we record, what content we do live, and provide my best recommendations for you while you're trying to plan your next virtual event. Now, before we get into it, I do want to remind you to hit that little bell down below, turn on the notifications so you get notified every single Monday when I drop a new video. Feel free to like, dislike, comment below. Let me know what kind of events you're planning. And without further ado, let's get back into it. So the first part of this video, I do want to tackle the difference between pre-recorded and live content. What do I mean when I say that? So in the virtual world, we're coming to you from your computer screen, from your TV, from your phone. You're not there in person. So unlike in an in-person event where it's very clear for you to know, oh, here is a live speaker because I actually see the person in front of me, and here is a recorded speaker because they're putting it up on the big screen and I do not physically see the speaker here. In the virtual world, it's a little bit harder to be able to tell the difference. And so you can kind of get away with having what appears to be a 100% live event, and it could actually be 100% recorded or partially recorded. So when I say recorded, that means you've created this content ahead of your event day. You've already videotaped it, you've recorded it, you've cut it, and all you have to do on the day of is either hit play or maybe just hit go, and that's where you're letting your attendees access your content. Live is where you are having the speakers come in live the day of, just like at a real in-person event, where you would say, okay, I have you speaking from 1 to 1:10 p.m. and at 1 p.m., you're cutting to the live presenter. So the difference between recorded and live, there's a little bit with the time commitment, I would say. So with the recorded content, you're putting a lot of the heavy lift pre-event. So you are trying to record it, you're trying to rehearse it, record it, finish it, all before your event day. With a live speaker or a live portion, you're putting all the lift on the day of your actual event. And so maybe you only have a rehearsal to lead up to it, and then on the day of, that's when you're actually having that content. Positives and negatives of both. I get this question kind of, Logan, what's better? Is it better to pre-record? Is it better to go live? And I really think there's positives and negatives to both. Often I'm pushing clients to do kind of a combination. So try to pre-record as much as you can, but also have some live elements so it does feel fun and fresh. And so I often find that better is a hard way to judge. It really is. What's a good fit for this virtual networking event is not going to be a good fit for your virtual nonprofit fundraiser, and that might also not be a good fit for your educational event. So one of my big reasons for why I would pre-record something over making it be live that day really is time. Is your speaker available on the day of? At an in-person event, maybe you would have said, oh, if you are unavailable at this day and this time, you can't be a speaker. Well, in the virtual sphere, they could still be a speaker. They would just need to pre-record their content. And so with some clients, we've used this as an opportunity to get a hold of speakers that would not have been available to come to our actual in-person event or would have been available to go live at our virtual event. And so here you can have speakers pre-record their comments, and then you would just have to queue that up to play that during your live virtual event. Another reason that I would have people pre-record is if they have unstable internet access. So this is one in the live element is really important for anyone who's going to be coming to you live, that they have a strong internet connection. It can be Wi-Fi, it doesn't have to be an Ethernet cable, but they just need to have a strong connection. And so if you're trying to speak with someone who lives in a more rural area, or I've often had speakers, they will tell me, hey, my internet connection is not strong. Okay, but we still want to hear from them. So it's really important that we just get that pre-recorded, and then we don't even have to deal with Wi-Fi as an issue or connectivity. We would just get that video from them. We'd have as much time as possible, because we're telling them hopefully super early, to get that video content transferred to us, and then we just play it from our computers on the day of the event. Now, a third reason that you might want to pre-record your content would be a staffing thing. So producing a live event does require a good amount of people depending on where you're producing your virtual live stream and how you're producing your virtual live stream. There are solutions that only involve one person, and there are solutions that involve a team or teams of teams. And I'm going to tackle that more in my video coming out next week, so stay tuned. But thinking specifically about pre-recording, if you pre-record a panel, let's say you have a panel of 4 people. So if you were going to do that live, that would require that you have probably a backstage manager. So you have a producer to actually make your stream, and then you have a backstage manager who's prepping them, who's making sure that their camera looks great, their video is great, their audio, their lighting, everything's good. And so you need that person day of to be able to prep these 4 people for their panel discussion. Switch to this if it was recorded. Maybe that person, instead of having to be available that entire event day, you just need your backstage manager, or your producer even could do this, of hopping in a Zoom call with the panel ahead of time, checking all the tech stuff, and then all they're doing is teaching them how to hit record in Zoom, and then you can leave. So from a staffing perspective, there's a little less lift when it comes to your day of staff when you're pre-recording content. And it's also a little bit more flexible for your panelists. So maybe they can't all make it on your event day. It's easier for them to find a day in the 2 weeks before your event to record their panel. Now, that being said, once you have it recorded, this is where, instead of having day of staffing lifts, you're going to need that video editor, and like a good video editor. Not so much because they're going to be doing complicated video edits. You can make a recorded panel look live, look really slick, just by slapping on like an little opening slide and maybe some background music, and then the panel discussion itself, and then maybe an end slide. So you don't need to have super technical video editing experience, but the key here is, depending on how much video content you're trying to produce, you need to be working with someone whose computer and technology has the capacity to process that much video content. So like for this example, my YouTube videos here, they're anywhere between 8 to 15 minutes long, and it could take me 20 minutes for my computer to export the finished video file and put it on my computer. Now imagine if you had hours and hours and hours of panel discussions, or even if you just had 2 hours of panel discussions. This takes time. And so it's just something to think about when you're choosing to pre-record or go live. When you're in the pre-recorded section, there's a little bit more flexibility in staffing, more flexibility for speakers, but you need to think about video editing and having somebody who has the capacity to process all of that video. If you want to go more in the live route, this is where you need to think of, okay, you're a stickler a little bit more with your panelists and your speakers about their timing, because you need them available day of. You also would probably need additional staff to help prep these people before you actually go live. And this leads me into my next thought. When you're talking about pre-recorded versus live, another question I'll get from clients often is, which is more cost effective? Is it more cost effective to be pre-recorded, or is it more cost effective to be live? Again, this really depends on the kind of event that you're trying to create. One of the great things I've seen as a good example, it's very cost effective, are webinars, and having webinars that are pre-recorded. So you record this on your own time, edit it, play it whenever you want, and you just have it go live, whether it's a YouTube premiere, whether you're just rolling the tape in a Zoom webinar live with people. It's already set, it's done. That's an easy and a cost-effective way that if you want to make sure that you just have the content and you don't want to do live Q&A or anything, that's a great thing to pre-record. Now, if your event is about an educational event that's focused on panel discussions about current news, well, pre-recording something about the current news, which I feel like changes day to day, would be really difficult, because you'd have to record very close to your actual event. And at that point, again, going back to my earlier comment, it takes time to export these videos and have them set and ready for you to broadcast, that you might as well just go live, because you want to have that real, in the moment responsiveness. Same, you could go back to my other example about webinars. If most of your webinar content is focused on getting real-time feedback from your attendees, maybe it's something you do in person, where you have a general framework of how your webinar course, your class is going to go, but you really kind of you need a temperature check from the room to know exactly how specific to get into certain topics. That's something you probably need to do live in the virtual sphere, because you still need that live feedback from your attendees, and you can do that with polls and comments and other things. So when we go back to costs and really just thinking which is more cost effective, recorded, pre-recorded, or live, again, I would really think about what your priorities are for your event and what would make the most sense to you. I'm currently working on a couple projects where we are playing with how much content we want to record and how much we want to have live. And for me, I constantly go back to, it's great to have a combination. It's great to have a little bit of recorded, a little bit of live. If you're 100% recorded, that puts a huge lift on your video editor and anybody who's doing your video content production team. It's also a heavy lift if you have lots of speakers and you're trying to get all of them to give you their video files by a certain deadline. That can be hard to do. But it's a little bit easier maybe than trying to wrangle all those speakers on the day of. Granted, doing 100% live can also be a really heavy lift because if someone's running late, somebody doesn't show up, you have to move around the schedule, it makes the whole day just kind of be constant moving parts. And so what I love about having a combination of the two is by having a little bit of recorded, a little bit of live, it's still fresh, it's still fun, you're still getting that real-time engagement, but then you also have a little bit of leeway. So let's say a speaker's running late, and so because you have a combo event of pre-recorded and live, instead of that speaker at that specific time, you can actually play one of your pre-recorded pieces. So whether you're throwing in a video and just postponing them just a little bit, or slotting someone in, you have a little bit more flexibility where your whole event does not depend on a really strong Wi-Fi connection from your speakers, or it doesn't entirely depend on your video producers being really, really quick. So that being said, when I get back down to the nitty-gritty of it of which is better, pre-recorded or live, I hate to start videos or end videos like this where it really just saying it depends, but it really does depend. And these are just questions that you need to sit down and think about when it comes to whatever event that you're trying to do. For example, let me give, a couple more cases. For example, I did a surprise graduation party for a friend, and that would not have made sense to be pre-recorded. That needed to be 100% live because it was a celebration and we were celebrating our friends, and the whole point was just to socialize and have fun. That didn't mean I didn't prepare activities or prepare things for us to do, but none of it was recorded. It was all live and in the moment. On the flip side, I worked a summit that used a bunch of different panels and breakout discussions, and they found it was actually easier for the panelists to organize pre the event and get together and just record their panel instead of trying to wrangle them all to come on the actual live event day. Now, this was great because it involved us getting the content ahead of time. The negative was it involved us needing to get the content ahead of time. And so some of the groups were really fast and good and hit deadlines, and others, they were a little bit delayed. And so that just put a lot of the stress on our video editor, who had to be really good and really quick to make sure we got all of the content. Because unlike a live event where if a video is taking a little bit of time to load, we could cut to a live speaker to kind of delay it until the video is ready, we were 100% reliant on that video. And so you just need to think through what works best for your event, what works best for your speakers. I seem to come back to this again and again, that a combination of pre-recorded and live seems to be the way to go. If you have an amazing in-house video production team or a vendor you love and you know and you like to work with them a lot, maybe you can go 100% recorded, but just know you need to work with someone that you love and trust to get that content out for you. Because if you're waiting on videos to export, I've learned you can't make them go faster even if you look at them a lot and try to send them all the virtual energy to go quick. So it really, really depends, but hopefully this video gave you a little bit of a framework of the questions that you should be asking, things to think about, why decisions are made to go recorded or live, and that'll hopefully inform you when you're trying to plan your next virtual event. And that's all I have for you. Again, I'm Logan Clemens, freelance event producer, and this has been another installment of my favorite tips and tricks when it comes to event planning and running your own business. Looking forward to chatting with you guys next week about the importance of staffing for the day of for your virtual event. I'm going to give a couple examples of what works, what I've done, what works, what you need to be thinking about, because I know that is a big, big item when it comes to budgeting for your next event. Looking forward to talking to you then. Bye.